Lolo Enki TV.
The Law of One, Book 3, Session 75. The 31st of October, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, the instrument would like to know why twice during the Benedictus portion of the music she sang in a group concert that she experienced what she believes to be a psychic attack. Ra, I am Ra. This is not a minor query. 2 We shall first remove the notations which are minor. In the vibrating, which you call singing, of the portion of what this instrument hallows as the Mass which immediately precedes that which is the chink called the Hosanna, there is an amount of physical exertion required that is exhausting to any entity. This portion of which we speak is termed the Sanctus. We come now to the matter of interest. When the entity Jehoshu all three decided to return to the location called Jerusalem for the holy days of its people, it turned from work mixing love and wisdom and embraced martyrdom, which is the work of love without wisdom. The Hosanna, as it is termed, and the following Benedictus is that which is the written summation of what was shouted as Jehoshu all came into the place of its martyrdom. The general acceptance of this shout, Hosanna to the Son of David. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, by that which is called the Church, has been a misstatement, an occurrence which has been, perhaps, unfortunate, for it is more distorted than much of the so-called Mass. There were two factions present to greet Jehoshu, or, firstly, a small group of those which hoped for an earthly king. However, Jehoshu rode upon an ass, stating by its very demeanor that it was no earthly king and wished no fight with Roman or Sadducee. 2 It may seem that there is an excessive amount of personal and rather melodramatic material about psychic attack included here. We considered long and hard before deciding not to delete it. Our reason, Ra, seems to suggest that any light worker will, if successful in this work, attract some sort of negatively oriented greeting. Therefore, we wish to share our experiences and Ra's discussion of them, in hopes that the information might be helpful. 3 Ra has previously identified this name as the name of Jesus in biblical times. The greater number were those which had been instructed by rabbi and elder to make jest of this entity, for those of the hierarchy feared this entity, who seemed to be one of them, giving respect to their laws and then, in their eyes, betraying those time-honored laws and taking the people with it. The chink for this instrument is this subtle situation which echoes down through your space or time, and, more than this, the place the Hosanna holds as the harbinger of that turning to martyrdom. We may speak only generally here. The instrument did not experience the full force of the greeting which it correctly identified during the Hosanna due to the intense concentration necessary to vibrate its portion of that composition. However, the Benedictus in this particular rendition of these words is vibrated by one entity. Thus the instrument relaxed its concentration and was immediately open to the fuller greeting. Questioner, the chink then, as I understand it, was originally created by the decision of Jesus to take the path of martyrdom? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is, in relation to this instrument, quite correct. It is aware of certain overbalances towards love, even to martyrdom, but has not yet, to any significant degree, balanced these distortions. We do not imply that this course of unbridled compassion has any fault but affirm its perfection. It is an example of love which has served as beacon to many. For those who seek further, the consequences of martyrdom must be considered, for in martyrdom lies the end of the opportunity, in the density of the martyr, to offer love and light. Each entity must seek its deepest path. Questioner: let me see, then, if I understand how the Orion entity finds a chink in this distortion. The entity identifying in any amount toward martyrdom is then open by its free will to the aid of the Orion group to make it a martyr. Am I correct? Ra: I am Ra. You are correct only in the quite specialized position in which the instrument finds itself, that is, of being involved in and dedicated to work which is magical or extremely polarized in nature. This group entered this work with polarity but virtual innocence as to the magical nature of this polarity. That it is beginning to discover. Questioner: how was the Orion entity able to act through this linkage of the Hosanna? Was this simply because of mental distortions of the instrument at this period of time, because of that suggested by the music, or was it a more physical or metaphysical link from the time of Christ? Ra: I am Ra. Firstly, the latter supposition is false. This entity is not linked with the entity, Jehoshua. Secondly, there is a most unique circumstance. There is an entity which has attracted the attention of an Orion light being. This is extremely rare. This entity has an intense devotion to the teachings and example of the one it calls Jesus. This entity then vibrates in song a most demanding version, called the Mass in B minor by Bach, of this exemplary votive complex of sound vibrations. The entity is consciously identifying with each part of this Mass. Only thusly was the chink made available. As you can see, it is not an ordinary occurrence and would not have happened had any ingredient been left out: exhaustion, bias in the belief complexes, attention from an Orion entity, and the metaphysical nature of that particular set of words. Questioner: what was the Orion entity's objective with respect to the entity you spoke of who, in a demanding manner, sings the Mass? Ra: I am Ra. The Orion entity wishes to remove the instrument. Questioner: is this a fourth or a fifth density? Ra: I am Ra. This instrument is being greeted by a fifth density entity which has lost some polarity due to its lack of dictatorship over the disposition of the instrument's mind or body spirit or its yellow ray activated physical complex. Questioner: you are speaking of this other person now who sang in the Mass. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. No. Questioner: I think there was a little miscommunication here. I was asking about the other person who sings the Mass in creating this chink that was also greeted by an Orion entity, and my question was what density is the Orion entity who greets the other person who sings the Mass? Ra: I am Ra. We did not speak of any entity but the instrument. Questioner: okay. I misunderstood. I thought you were speaking of someone else in the singing group who had been identified with the singing. The entire time we were speaking only of the instrument. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: I am sorry for my confusion. Sometimes, as you say, sound vibration complexes are not very adequate. The answer to this next question probably has to do with our distorted view of time, but as I see it, wanderers in this density who come from the fifth density or sixth density should already be of a relatively high degree of adeptness, and they must follow a slightly different path back to the adeptness that they once had in a higher density and get as close to it as they can in the third density. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. Your query is less than perfectly focused. We shall address the subject in general. There are many wanderers whom you may call adepts who do no conscious work in the present incarnation. It is a matter of attention. One may be a fine catcher of your game sphere, but if the eye is not turned as this sphere is tossed, then perchance it will pass the entity by. If it turned its eyes upon the sphere, catching would be easy. In the case of wanderers which seek to recapitulate the degree of adeptness which each had acquired previous to this life experience, we may note that even after the forgetting process has been penetrated, there is still the yellow activated body which does not respond as does the adept, which is of a green or blue ray activated body. Thusly, you may see the inevitability of frustrations and confusion due to the inherent difficulties of manipulating the finer forces of consciousness through the chemical apparatus of the yellow ray activated body. Questioner, you probably can't answer this, but are there any suggestions that you could give with respect to the instrument's coming hospital experience that could be of benefit for her? Ra, I am Ra. We may make one suggestion and leave the remainder with the Creator. It is well for each to realize itself as the Creator. Thusly each may support each, including the support of self by humble love of self as Creator. Questioner, you spoke in a previous session about certain Hebrew and Sanskrit sound vibrator complexes being powerful because they were mathematically related to that which was the creation. Could you expand on this understanding as to how these are linked? Ra, I am Ra. As we previously stated, the linkage is mathematical, or that of the ratio you may consider musical. There are those whose mind complex activities would attempt to resolve this mathematical ratio, but at present the coloration of the intoned vowel is part of the vibration which cannot be accurately measured. However, it is equivalent to types of rotation of your primary material particles. Questioner, if these sounds are precisely vibrated, then what effect or use, with respect to the purposes of the adept, would they have? Ra, I am Ra. You may consider the concept of sympathetic resonance. When certain sounds are correctly vibrated, the creation sings. Questioner, would these sounds, then, be of a musical nature in that there would be a musical arrangement of many different sound vibrations, or would this apply to just one single note? Which would it apply more to? Ra, I am Ra. This query is not easily answered. In some cases only the intoned vowel has effect. In other cases, most notably Sanskrit combinations, the selection of harmonic intervals is also of resonant nature. Questioner, then would the adept use this resonant quality to become more one with the creation and, therefore, attain his objective in that way? Ra, I am Ra. It would be perhaps more accurate to state that in this circumstance the creation becomes more and more contained within the practitioner. The balance of your query is correct. Questioner, could you tell me the musical name of the notes to be intoned that are of this quality? Ra, I am Ra. We may not. Questioner, I didn't think that you could, but I thought it wouldn't hurt to ask. Then I assume that these must be sought out and determined by empirical observation of their effect by the seeker. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is partially correct. As your seeking continues, there will be added to empirical data that acuity of sensibility which continued working in the ways of the adept offers. Questioner, is the exercise of the fire best for the instrument, or is there anything better that we could do other than the things that you have already suggested to aid the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. Continue as you are at present. We cannot speak of the future as we may then affect it, but there is a great probability or possibility if you follow the path which you now tread that more efficacious methods for the entire group will be established. Questioner, you mentioned in an earlier session that the hair was an antennae. Could you expand on that statement as to how that works? Ra, I am Ra. It is difficult to so do due to the metaphysical nature of this antennae effect. Your physics are concerned with measurements in your physical complex of experience. The metaphysical nature of the contact of those intima space is such that the hair, as it has significant length, becomes as a type of electrical battery which stays charged and tuned and is then able to aid contact even when there are small anomalies in the contact. Questioner, is there an optimum length of hair for this aid? Ra, I am Ra. There is no outer limit on length, but the, shall we say, inner limit is approximately 4 to 4½ inches depending upon the strength of the contact and the nature of the instrument. Questioner, may anyone in third density accomplish some degree of healing if they have the proper will, desire, and polarity, or is there a minimal balance of the energy centers of the healer that is also necessary? Ra, I am Ra. Any entity may at any time instantaneously clear and balance its energy centers. Thus in many cases those normally quite blocked, weakened, and distorted may, through love and strength of will, become healers momentarily. To be a healer by nature, one must indeed train itself in the disciplines of the personality. Questioner, how does the use of the magical ritual invoking the magical personality aid the mind or body spirit complex totality? Could you expand on the answer that you gave in the last session with respect to that? Ra, I am Ra. When the magical personality is properly and efficaciously invoked, the self has invoked its higher self. Thus a bridge betwixt space or time and Tumia space is made, and the sixth density magical personality experiences directly the third density catalyst for the duration of the working. It is most central to deliberately take off the magical personality after the working in order that the higher self resume its appropriate configuration as analog to the space or time mind or body spirit. Questioner, then you are saying that the act, signal, or key for the invoking of the magical personality, which is the putting of something on or a gesture, should also be as carefully taken off to reverse the gesture perhaps at the end of the invocation? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. It should be fastidiously accomplished either in mind or by gesture as well if this is of significant aid. Questioner, now in the invocation of the magical personality it is not necessarily effective for the neophyte. Is there a point at which there is a definite quantum change and that then the magical personality does reside in the neophyte, or can it be done in small degrees or percentages of magical personality as the neophyte becomes more adept? Ra, I am Ra. The latter is correct. Questioner: the three aspects of the magical personality are stated to be power, love, and wisdom. Is this correct, and are these the only primary aspects of the magical personality? Ra, I am Ra. The three aspects of the magical personality, power, love, and wisdom, are so called in order that attention be paid to each aspect in developing the basic tool of the adept, that is, itself. It is by no means a personality of three aspects. It is a being of unity, a being of sixth density, and equivalent to what you call your higher self, and at the same time is a personality enormously rich in variety of experience and subtlety of emotion. The three aspects are given that the neophyte not abuse the tools of its trade, but rather approach those tools balanced in the center of love and wisdom, and thus seeking power in order to serve. Questioner: then is it correct that a good sequence for the developing of the magical personality would be alternate meditations, first on power, and then a meditation on love, and then a meditation on wisdom, and then to continue cycling that way? Ra, I am Ra. This is indeed an appropriate technique. In this particular group there is an additional aid in that each entity manifests one of these qualities in a manner which approaches the archetype. Thusly visualization may be personalized and much love and support within the group generated. Questioner: you made the statement in a previous session that the true adept lives more and more as it is. Will you explain and expand more upon that statement? Ra, I am Ra. Each entity is the creator. The entity, as it becomes more and more conscious of itself, gradually comes to the turning point at which it determines to seek either in service to others or in service to self. The seeker becomes the adept when it has balanced with minimal adequacy the energy centers red, orange, yellow, and blue, with the addition of the green for the positive, thus moving into indigo work. The adept then begins to do less of the preliminary or outer work, having to do with function, and begins to effect the inner work which has to do with being. As the adept becomes a more and more consciously crystallized entity, it gradually manifests more and more of that which it always has been since before time, that is, the one infinite creator. This instrument begins to show rapid distortion towards increase of pain. We, therefore, would offer time for any brief query before we leave this working. Questioner: is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Ra, I am Ra. You are conscientious. The alignments are well. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.